We good? All right, good evening. I'm Dr. Candace Matthews. I'm the Texas Statewide Steering Committee Chair for the Rainbow Push Coalition under the leadership of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. We are here today standing in solidarity as community activists, elected officials, and civil rights leaders and parents and family. In lieu of, we would want the baseball coach, Mr. Zuna, and his assistant head coach for their contracts not to be renewed. Clearly, there has been some problematic issues with Coach Zuna, which one, we had a child who had an afro, and allegedly he claimed that the child could not be on the baseball team unless he cut his hair. That is unacceptable. That is discriminatory. And that is something that we will not tolerate in our school districts, and we will not tolerate it in our city, and we will not tolerate it in our state. And then we had HISD, who at first appeared to not take it seriously when the complaint came in. Then it perpetuated a racial broil that happened weeks prior after that, well, months after that, against Westbury High School. We have kids that were African American that were being teased for the color of their skin, making monkey noises, saying that we have bananas. We had an umpire that had to stop the game because Coach Zuna did not get on top of his players, and clearly it showed that you were perpetuating racial language and discriminatory behavior. We, the Rainbow Push Coalition, would not tolerate no form of racism. Our children deserve to be in a school district that embrace diversity, that embrace equity, and that embrace inclusion. And clearly, this is not what we're seeing here. And this message goes out to our board members today. If you do not pull his contract and his assistant coach's contract, it makes you complicit, and it shows that you are perpetuating racial injustice amongst our students. And we are not going to tolerate that. So now I would like to bring up our state rep, Mr. Ron Reynolds.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews, and I'm not going to be long. We have a great group of committed elected officials and community leaders here today standing in solidarity. And I echo what Dr. Matthews stated. You know, when I think about Dr. King's word that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, you can imagine that what this coach did is set us back as a community. We're the most diverse community in this country. A coach is supposed to set the example. And what kind of example was the coach setting to his players when he didn't condemn it? He should have immediately stopped those players. It's almost like he acquiesced when he didn't do it. He should not have had an umpire to have to step in. He and his staff, his assistant coaches, they all should have immediately rectified the matter. Immediately. There should have been disciplinary actions with his players. They should have been taught better. But by the fact of his silence, it spoke volumes to what he allowed to happen. And so I agree that there should be disciplinary action from the district to the coach and to the assistant coach, because that is not the example that we need to set. You know, the state of Texas, unfortunately, we're dealing with unfortunate racial issues with critical race theory, and no wonder there's some people who want to eradicate us from talking about discrimination and the history of slavery, because we still have the mindset of racial disparities and discrimination in this country. And in 2022, this is not tolerated. So I stand in solidarity with the community, asking for action, demanding justice, demanding swift consequences, so that it sets the message to not just at Bel Air, but all across the districts, all across the state, that will not be tolerated. We don't want other players thinking that it's okay. And so we're here today to say that this coach and his staff, they set a poor example. and they did not condemn, and they did not rectify the matter. And those players, imagine those students. These are student athletes. They're already dealing with enough with the impact of COVID. They're already dealing enough with the emotional trauma of just now getting over social distancing. They did not deserve what they experienced on that in that field. And then the other player, to be discriminated against because of his hair, that goes against everything revolving the Crown Act, and no person, no student should be discriminated against because of their hair. And so we're going to fight and demand that HISD take immediate action. Thank you.
And to piggyback on State Rep Ron Reynolds, he is absolutely right. No student should be discriminated against, or no individual, period, based upon what your hair look like. So if I come with a long hair weave, I can't come and work for you. The lies you tell, because at the end of the day, you would not discriminate me or anyone that looks like me. So now I would like to bring up State Rep John Rosenthal.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. I'm John Rosenthal, House District 135, and I'm proud to stand here in solidarity with the Rainbow Push Coalition, with these folks here. I'll be brief. My message is simple. I want to speak to people that look like me. You cannot tolerate this. Yeah. Silence in the face of this is complicity. So if you look like me and you see this happening around you in your schools, in your churches, in your public civic groups, you need to speak out. There's no room for silence, because silence is complicity. Silence favors the oppressor. It's on all of us to speak out when we see this type of injustice, this type of racism, this type of prejudice. Cannot tolerate it, and we cannot let others see us tolerate it. The message must be clear, and I agree with the position. These coaches should not be allowed to continue after their contract expires. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to bring up the mother of the young man who actually had the afro and who was allegedly discriminated against and was not able to play baseball unless he cut his afro. So I'd like to bring up Ms. Erica Rome.
Thank you all for being here today to support me and my son. When my son came home and he shared with me what had happened, I couldn't believe what had actually happened, and 2020 that we're dealing with this, and that it just dismissed the fact that my son is a gifted and talented child who has been coded as gifted and talented since pre-K, who speaks multiple languages fluently, that you would deny him based on his hair, not who he is, who his character is, and that he is a wonderful person and child with zero behavior problems. You zeroed in on his hair, his culture, and made him feel as though he was an outcast or that he was wrong. And that's just unacceptable. And it hurt me as a parent. And then to know that Houston ISD swept it under the rug when I spoke at the board meetings and I spoke out to the principal, Michael McDonough. I reached out to the board members and nothing happened. And then they send me an email dismissing the fact that the coach actually said it. The racial slurs to my son. And then to know what happened to the Westbury players, to know that my son plays select with those players, it was just hurt on top of hurt. And I hope and pray that that not only my son receives justice, but all of these children receive justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Now I would like to bring up one of our community activists, Mr. Travis McGee.
Good evening. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matters. Old races teach young races. Young races become old races. That's one curriculum that we should not be allowed to be taught in HISD. At least we don't want them taught with our tax dollars. We want them fired. We don't want them to work on any other school campus in America. This has to stop. The school this could have and should have done more than just give them a slap on the wrist. They always sweep things under the rug. So yes, we do want this racist fired. There's no other way around it. A racist is a racist. We got to call it what it is. This one thing that we should not be teaching our kids. One thing about racism is just like cancer. If you don't cut it out the body, it's spread throughout the body. So HISD should have cured this cancer a long time ago. They the chemotherapists right here in this building. So we want him gone, and anybody think like him gone. Thank you.
Okay, now I would like to also bring community activist and also educator, Mr. Larry McKenzie.
I'm a baseball coach, I'm a baseball father, I'm an educator, and I go to say that this is like a field trip. This happened on HISD facilities, so anything that happened is responsible, the principals that are there and the coaches that are there. So what happened is they need to be brought and fired, and the students were bullying and exhibiting racism. So the thing we need to do is we need to follow the rules. No one is asking us not to follow the rules, but those students should be in a DAE program for gang-like affiliation. When you have more than 2 people do something to another child, then it's a gang. But Bel Air doesn't send their children to secondary DAEP.
Thank you. Now I would like to bring up the attorney for Ms. Erica Rome and her son, Attorney Murray.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Murray. I represent Erica Rome, her family, her son. I also represent other families and students at Bel Air High School and Westbury High School. So the first thing I'd like to do is thank you all for coming and thank all the activists, public officials that came. I will be very brief because we're still investigating everything, but ultimately the extreme and outrageous conduct of the Bel Air players, of the Bel Air coaches, of everyone involved in these discriminatory acts are under investigation, and they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We are, like I said, we're currently investigating all of these allegations, and we're very comfortable and confident that they will suffer the consequences of their actions. Now, like I said, I can't talk too much about it because we're investigating everything, but I think that's it. So I will take a couple questions if you have them.
Mr. Murray, when you say they will suffer the consequences of their actions, are you saying that you're going to file suit on behalf of these parents, these families?
We're looking into that. We're looking at the Department of Education, making claims against that, and also some other federal claims.
At what point do you think that you'll reach that conclusion?
It depends on the ending of our investigation as well as HISD's investigation.
As far as HISD's investigation is concerned, they say as far as the coaches are concerned that they've been reassigned. What has been the course of your conversations with HISD's administrative team about this? Have they said anything to you all?
We've had some confidential conversations. I'm not at liberty to discuss exactly what we talked about, but clearly they understand the allegations, and clearly understand the consequences of the actions of these individuals.
Mr. Murray, did you say you're representing families from Bel Air and Westbury?
Yes, ma'am.
Are these families that were on opposite sides, obviously?
No. They were opposite teams. They were opposite teams competing that day. But the discriminatory acts affected all children who were targeted, whether it be Westbury children that were targeted, and also there are some African Americans on the Bel Air team that heard these same comments. And they can't be sectioned out. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay.
Can you really speak to how these students are doing? I mean, I can't imagine, having to sit through being treated this way at such a young age.
Exactly the point I'm making. Right now, as their lawyer, as a person who speaks for them, it's my job to help them get the services they're needing. And that's what we're doing now. Whether it be counseling, whether it be other type of therapy, but that's what we're doing. That's what I'm concentrating on right now, as well as investigating the allegations. I'm trying to make these young men whole. I'm trying to make these young men, before they experience these actions, this extreme and outrageous conduct, I'm trying to put them back before that.
Ms. Rome, has your son seen a therapist, or what has that healing process, if you want to refer to it as such, been for him?
Well, I'm not going to we're going to speak in general. They all are getting the services they need. I don't want to get into specifics of each one, what exactly they're receiving.
When did this happen to your son, Mr. Rome? Before the baseball game, of course, but you said 2020 initially, and I'm just curious. No, actually, when did that happen to him?
January 10th of 2022, so this year. Yes. Yes, my son is a freshman. Yes.
And he had tried to join the team and was told that he couldn't unless he cut his hair.
Well, he tried out for the team in the summer of 2021, and he made the team. And then there was always an excuse why he was not being able to practice with the team, and Coach Ozuna would always come up with an excuse why he was not able to practice with the team. And so the last incident was, when he made the comment in the hallway of Bel Air High School about my son's hair, and that led to other children starting to harass him and bully him from that. And the coach laughed about it.
And the comment was, cut your hair.
Chop your hair.
We have
Chop.
a statement from Mr. Ozuna's attorney calling this a smear campaign against this coach. What is the response to that? Is there a political motive here?
We have. I know Coach Ozuna's attorney, and I respect him, but I just think he's incorrect in this the way he's evaluated this case. That's not. I don't know that anyone has any political aspirations. I don't know there's any motive behind this other than getting these children the services and help they need. This is extreme and outrageous conduct. These are children. These are minors. These aren't adults. These aren't grown men. These are children, and we're trying to protect them. And it's regrettable that both sides don't see this. As adults, we can disagree on what his penalty should be. We can disagree on many things, but we can't disagree on the fact that we have to protect our children, and that's what we're doing. And that's my response to his lawyer.
We saw the outcome after the initial complaint was made by HISD. What, if anything, makes you believe that the outcome this time would be different?
They have no other choice. And we have more people behind us, and I'm telling them, I'm looking right in this camera. If they don't do what's right, we're going to make them do what's right.
Can I also add to that?
Yes, ma'am.
What I also want to add is that this is not a Democratic issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is a human rights issue.
That's right.
What this is a miscarriage of civil rights and human rights. And when we have that, we're all going to stand 10 toes down to make sure that accountability is had, because it is our responsibility to breed accountability, to ensure that accountability is being done directly to the miscarriage of racial discrimination, period. So regardless if you're Republican, regardless if you're Democrat, at the end of the day, discrimination should not be tolerated on neither side. So this is nothing political at all. This is a human rights and civil rights issue. Are there any more questions?
It was mentioned, of course, that there are African-American players on both sides, both teams, when this alleged incident occurred. How important is it, do you think it is to see, for the students, to see adults coming to their defense?
Well, first of all, we're dealing with children who have not experienced what Martin Luther King experienced, who not experienced what our parents experienced in order to have a seat at the table. We're standing on the backs of our ancestors in order for them to have the opportunities that they're allowed. So therefore, a lot of them really are kind of oblivious to what's happening, because, they have the TikTok, they have the Facebook, they have all of this stuff. But when you have people that are like us who had to pave the way for our children, we're going to let them know right off the bat that behavior is going to be unacceptable. And that's exactly what these parents did. And I stand behind them 110%, because when you don't say nothing, it makes you complicit.
That's right.
So are we going to be complicit to racism?
No.
Are we going to be complicit to discrimination? Are we going to be complicit to any racial slurs or any racial intent type of language? Absolutely not. It is our job as parents. It is our job as community leaders. It is our job to ensure that we do not have this type of discriminatory behavior in our schools. We want to make sure, and I want everybody that's watching this, if you're a covert racist working in any one of these school districts, we're going to flush you out because we're going to drain the swamp of it because we're not having it. And it's unacceptable. You're not going to judge nobody by the color of their skin. You're going to judge them by the content of their character. And that's what we mean, and that's what we stand on. And today, we going in this boardroom today, and we demanding that if you do not handle this coach and what this coach has done throughout all these problematic issues that he has done, then we're going to handle you at the polls. Okay? Do we have any other questions? All right, so if we don't have any more questions, this press conference is concluded. Thank you so much. And